The Italians are doing it again. Firstly, they wanted to give Neapolitan pizza a protected status, so we weren't allowed to call Neapolitan pizza a Neapolitan, unless, of course, it was made in Naples. Then the carbonara was under threat. I think Prosecco too for a little while. Of course, the French have done this with a lot of their wines and sparkling wines too. But now the Italians are looking at gelato. But they're more concerned about what's happening at home than anywhere else. The Italian government is considering fining gelato makers €10,000, that's about 15,000 Australian dollars, if they fail to keep to strict traditional recipe guidelines, and it all comes down to how much air is pumped into the ice cream. Lisa Calabro and her husband run a gelato business right here in Perth, and I'm delighted to say that Lisa joins me now. Is it ever too early for ice cream, Lisa?
No, I'd have to say it's not. Russell, how are you?
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
I'm good, obviously, and now just all I can think about is gelato. So thanks. Had you heard about this new or proposed law on gelato?
No, I hadn't, but I'm aware, as you said earlier, that the Italians are pretty proud of their gastronomy, so they want to protect, the things like the Neapolitan pizza. So it doesn't come as a surprise.
What about then? I mean, what they're saying, the accusation is that they think gelato makers, some of them, are pumping air into gelato. What's the idea behind that?
Okay, so any more of an industrial sort of producer with larger machinery, yes, you can pump air. It's a press of a button, so you can choose how much air you'd like to introduce into the gelato. If you're doing it the authentic way, making it the authentic way, the traditional way, obviously that doesn't happen.
And is the idea, I mean, is it as easy as, you're puffing it out basically, so you're making it look like there's more on the cone, where in effect you'll be paying the same price for something that is actually, pound for pound, less gelato than you should be getting?
Correct. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, Russell. That's exactly correct. Yeah.
And so then, does it taste different?
Well, it's not the traditional, like the product that we make. If we sort of go, we first make a bit of a comparison to ice cream. Gelato, just for the benefit, that makes it maybe a little bit easier to understand. Gelato has less milk fat. It's served at a warmer temperature, and the texture that we're now all familiar with, it's dense, more dense and softer than ice cream. And that's as a result that while it's churning in our small batch machines, less air is introduced into the mix while it's freezing.
Mm-hmm.
So with the less air, you get that dense product, the traditional Italian gelato.
I mean, again, when you describe it, it's beautiful. I can think of it sort of it's buttery context, and it's such a
silky.
So beautiful. And then, so I guess you'd be quite happy that the Italian government might be cracking down on people for not making gelato correctly.
Yeah. One of the things that we've always tried to sort of get across and communicate, if you're, like you mentioned before, if you're going on a volume measurement, so a scoop or a cup that for all intents and purposes looks like it's the same round scoop, but if you were to weigh it, you'd be very surprised, because if it's filled with air, it's going to weigh a lot less. So there's value for money in a scoop of authentic gelato, because you are getting...
I think I've lost your call there. Sorry about that. We were talking there to Lisa Calabro from Il Gelato, talking about the Italian government and its plan to ban some gelato makers because they're pumping too much air into the product. It's a bit like if you go to the supermarket and you get, a large bag of chips or twisties or something like that. And, then when you open up the packet, you see that there's just 1/3 full. And then if you look at the weight, you notice, oh, right, that's sort of come down in weight compared to the way it used to be. It's the way of getting more bang for the buck from the producer, and is something that is working against the consumer. Thanks, Lisa, for having a chat to us. It's 7:24 on ABC Radio Perth.